Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this special destination spotlight on Israel. We'll just get started in a few minutes. In the meantime, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you are joining us on Facebook, you can use the comment box there to let us know where you are located. Hi, Julie from Alaska. Welcome. Hi, Barb from Canada. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Becky from Delaware and John from Iowa. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Richard and Karen from Ohio, Sharon from Canada. Wow, we have so many folks from Canada joining us. Colleen from Nashville, Kelly from Minnesota. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Albert from Texas, and Marianne from Pennsylvania. Linda from Havana, welcome. Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're just going to give it one more minute to make sure that everybody is joining us, and then we'll get started. Patricia from Vegas, fun, welcome. Oh, my class and I are joining you from Northern California. Welcome. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get this rolling. Well, welcome everyone. As I said, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Claudia. I'm from the Go Ahead team, and I'm coming to you live from Boston. For today's travel talk, we are virtually traveling to Israel to discover 3 spectacular cities, Tel Aviv, Nazareth, and Jerusalem. We are joined today by expert tour director Miky, live from Israel. He's here to share his stories and expertise with you all, and will introduce himself in just a moment. All right, the plan today is to walk through some webinar tips so you can maximize your time with us. Then we'll go over what makes this country and traveling with Go Ahead so wonderful. And after, our beloved tour director will take it away and talk about the tour that covers these cities, sharing his insights and stories along the way, and then answer some of the questions that you might have at the end during our Q&A portion of this webinar. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are so excited to have you here. Unlike a normal video call, your cameras and microphones are completely turned off. You will only see and hear me, your host, and our tour director. We can't see you, we can't hear you, but of course we want to hear from you. So throughout this travel talk, please feel welcome to use the chat box to interact with each other, and the Q&A box to pose questions to our speaker. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can use the comment box there to ask your questions during the Q&A. Now, out of respect for tour director Miky and folks on this call who might have a connection to Israel, please kindly refrain from asking questions regarding the current political situation in Israel. All right, let's jump right in. Everybody, let's buckle our seatbelts. We are getting on the Go Ahead airplane and virtually traveling to Israel. As a country, Israel is a perfect blend of opposites. It has regions rich with history and cities that are full of new world energy. For a country that's barely the size of New Jersey, Israel offers an experience of biblical proportions, literally. As a prime destination for religious pilgrimages, the Holy Land offers, among many sacred splendors, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Western Wall, and the Dome of the Rock. And that's just inside the walls of Jerusalem's Old City. Israel offers diverse experiences, both religious and secular, from the home of the Baha'i faith in Haifa to the glittering high rises and spectacular beaches in Tel Aviv. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce your wonderful speaker for today, Miky. Miky, would you be so kind to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual tour of Israel. My name is Miky. I'm an Israeli native, born and raised in the city of Haifa, Israel, talking to you live from Israel. I've been guiding tours for EF and Go Ahead for the last 15 years, and this time it will be a virtual tour, but in the future, I'll be happy to host you on our actual tours. It's going to take place from November and on. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Miky. Now, Planning a trip can be very overwhelming, but with Go Ahead, it doesn't have to be. One thing that sets us apart is our unique and diverse itinerary offerings. For our hotels, our specialized teams handpick every single one, and they make sure they are safe, of top quality, and are located in a convenient area to the destination. Apart from your tour director, who is with you every step of the way, we also have expert local guides on the ground waiting to meet you and discover the destination with you. When you arrive on your included flight, we'll be there to pick you up, and we'll also be there to whisk you around the country or countries you're visiting. As for the tour experience, we have staff all over the world who curate itineraries and activities so you can experience a destination just like the locals do. And lastly, our tour directors, they truly are the heart of the tour. They manage the logistics, like picking you up from the airport, showing you the major sites, and getting you acclimated. But they do so much more than that. They are a friendly face, a teacher, a friend. They're fun, charismatic, entertaining, and full of information. Now, some of you might not be familiar with our Israel tours, but we have 4 different tours to Israel that cater to different travel styles, including 2 new tours, and one of them is an adventure tour to Tel Aviv, the Dead Sea, and Jerusalem. Now, we will go over all the tours that we offer to this region later, as today we are focusing on the wonders of ancient Israel. This tour is 9 days long, starting in Tel Aviv and ending in Jerusalem, unless you decide to add the very recommended extension to Jordan, which is 4 days long. And with that, I will now let Miky take it away so he can tell you more about this tour and all the wonderful things you can see and experience during this trip. Miky.
Thank you. So unbuckling ourselves, coming out of the plane, we find ourselves in the international airport of Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, named after our first prime minister. That was the first prime minister when the country was established in 1948. About half an hour drive will take us to Tel Aviv. That's where we're going to spend our first night. Tel Aviv actually is located very close to Old Jaffa, and Old Jaffa is a biblical city that is known for very ancient stories that are mentioned in the Bible, like the stories of Jonah and the whale, or the vision of St. Peter. And it's now as a neighborhood in Tel Aviv with a population of about 1 million people. But Tel Aviv was established only in 1903. As the biggest city in Israel. Tel Aviv is mostly flat, as you can see. It's just located on the coast of the Mediterranean with its beautiful beaches, available to swim mostly all year round, except the winter. Tel Aviv offering a lot of culture, a lot of museums, music, theater, markets. It's very safe to walk, to stroll in the streets, to enjoy the food in those ancient Jaffa restaurants, and also in Tel Aviv, options of not expensive meals or expensive meals in very fancy restaurants, cafes, bars, and pubs. Tel Aviv is very modern, very cosmopolitan. It is the most modern city in Israel, unlike Jerusalem and Haifa that we are going to talk about later on. Here we can see the Jaffa harbor, which today is used for sports and fishing, but in the past it was the gateway to Israel for all the pilgrims that came to pilgrim into the Holy Land and then take a camel ride or a donkey ride to Jerusalem. Tel Aviv is known for its very special architecture. It's also called the White City. Tel Aviv is built mostly, as you can see, from limestone, sandstone, or other types of stone. We don't have those timbers here in Israel, so that was the available building material. As you can see, the 3 monotheistic religions are presented everywhere. And we can see here the city center, the Synagogue Center with its famous fountain and square, right in the middle of this very famous Shiki Boulevard, when you can go for shopping, for walking, in place to be seen, to sit in the coffees over there. Tel Aviv is called the White City because when it was established and first built, all the buildings were painted white. And this in order to reduce the temperature in the homes, to reduce the sun radiation, and also designed by the famous architecture, this, design that is builds those balconies around the houses, which can provide us a place, a shady spot in all parts of the day. And this is because people at those times didn't have air conditioning, and that gave Tel Aviv this special look, which is called the Bauhaus Architecture, that Jewish immigration from Germany brought with them. And this was a solution to beat the heat by the sea. But today, they don't do that anymore. You can see in the background how they turn to modern design with glass and aluminum. So the city is changing, and it's not the white city anymore as it used to be in the past. The Municipality Square in Tel Aviv, the municipality building can be seen here on the right, and this monument is to commemorate the Holocaust that was put by a famous artist called Yigal Tumarkin, passed away last week. And again, Tel Aviv is changing now by putting in new transportation system and an underground system. So they are digging the streets. Here we can see the first station in the Municipality Square. So a lot of modern buildings and modern changes in Tel Aviv. Sometimes it's a bit awkward because of traffic jams, but again, it's very safe to walk. You can walk at any time on your own and enjoy the atmosphere and what this city has to offer to you. And what else we'll find in Tel Aviv is a lot of food and beautiful bustling markets with a little collection of fruit and vegetables and spices and herbs and all types of food from all parts of the world. So there's always a lot to do after our tour hours in the evening when you can take a stroll on your own and enjoy an evening on your own walking or cycling.
Thank you, Miky. Now, speaking of food, we have a pre-submitted question from the audience, and Linda wants to know what foods should she try in Israel?
Israel, being a country of immigrants, Jewish immigrants into the country from all parts of the world, so therefore each group of immigrants brought their special food, so we can find a collection of all types of food: Oriental food, Arabic food, European, local food, modern food, Japanese, and even Chinese. But few types of food or dishes that you should try is the famous shakshuka that you can see on the upper right here, which is a mixture of tomatoes, onion, chili pepper, and eggs, almost mostly consumed for breakfast. The hummus, which is on the upper center. Hummus is the garbanzo beans, or also called hummus spread. Sometimes it will come with those seeds in the center with olive oil. Of course, the fresh Arabic salad and the falafel balls, which are made also from garbanzo or the chickpeas, served in a pita, which is called the falafel. So the falafel, the hummus, and the shakshuka are basic food, street food, I would say. Doesn't require that much time to have. You can take it on a break during the tour, during the day. And in the evening, you can enjoy a meal in one of the fancy restaurants of Tel Aviv.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. A 45 minutes drive along the coast to the north will take us to Caesarea. Caesarea was established as a port city by King Herod. He built a beautiful harbor that was serving the Romans when they enter the Holy Land. Not much of it is left. We can see only half of the city today because half of it sank into the sea because of the big earthquake in 749 AD. But what is left for there to see is the Roman theater and the hippodrome, which you can see in the center of the photo. That's where they used to perform the horse racing or chariot racing, and the theater, which is still used today on a daily basis for events, concerts, shows, and operas. A 2,000 years old theater, renovated, and every night we can see a show over there. It was designed in a very smart way, facing the sea in the background, as you can see, and the evening west wing is bringing the voices and the sounds from the stage to the audience without using any amplifying system equipment. Caesarea is located on the coast, and we continue our tour on the coast. We drive another 45 minutes and we will get to the city of Haifa, which is located on the north part of the country, my hometown, of course. Very similar to San Francisco. It is built from three parts. One part is on top of Mount Carmel, then Hadar is the mid section, and the downtown you can see over here as we view it from top of Mount Carmel, from the top of the Baha'i Gardens. The Baha'i hanging gardens, like balconies, is going all the way from top to the bottom of the mountain. And in the center, we can see the shrine, the Golden Dome, which is the tomb of the founder of this religious about 160 years ago in Persia, Abdul Baha. and he was called the Bab, the gate between life on earth and heaven. He was buried there, and this shrine was built on top of his tomb. You can see the beautiful manicured gardens that you'll be able to see as we stand on top of the mountain. And on the other side of the bay, we're able to see the city of Acre, which will be our next destination. But before we drive around the bay to Acre, we'll learn a lot about Haifa, the population of Haifa, about 500,000 people. Haifa is an industrial city doing a lot of petrochemical industry. And here we are in Akko on the other side of the bay. You can see the old city of Akko, but this old city was built in the 16th century without knowing that underneath is lying the Crusader city that was abandoned and was covered by the shifting sand. So lately, they started to take the sand out and to expose the Crusader city that we are going to be able to walk, to take a walk under the ground in the night halls. Here we can see how the groups are entering under the ground into this 1-hour walk under the ground in the Crusader city, which we saw the beautiful, amazing architecture of the Crusaders. We're going to see the hidden hall, we can see the crypt, we can see the church and the hospital and a lot of public structures. We can see the streets as well and some private homes. It's amazing to take this tour under the ground for about an hour and to see those beautiful, perfectly preserved structures that were covered by the shifting sand and therefore were preserved from the weather. Akko is a good example of coexistence, like Haifa, of Arab and Jews living together. And again, those good things you don't hear on the news, it doesn't make headlines. Here we can see the El Jazar Mosque, a mosque which is used daily by the Muslim community, beautifully decorated with pieces of marble, those mosaics that are coating the entrance and also from inside. We'll see inside the place where the Muslims are praying, all facing the Mahrab, which shows them the direction to pray to Mecca. Here you can see the decorations on the walls from the outside, all made of pieces of marble. And the traditional belief is that inside the mosque, there's a little box with one piece of hair from Muhammad the Prophet's beard. Here you can see on the ground how the carpets is showing each location for each prayer and the direction to pray, and the stage for the preacher to stand on top of that and to give him the Friday speech. We're going to drive for about an hour. Now we are leaving the coast and driving inland into Nazareth. Nazareth, the cradle of Christianity. Right in the center, we can see the Church of Annunciation, the place where Archangel Gabriel announced Mary about her being the choice of God to carry his son, Jesus. So Jesus was actually, Mary got pregnant over here, but she gave birth in Bethlehem. We'll talk about it later. In Nazareth, population of about 85,000 people, 80% are Muslims, 20% are Christians, all of them are Arabs. There are two churches of Annunciation. One is the Catholic one, and the second one is the Orthodox one. And on many Christian sites, we'll be able to see both presence of Catholics and Orthodox in two different churches, standing on the same place next to each other for the same reason. Here we can see how people lived in that time of Jesus 2,000 years ago, how they used the donkeys for transportation, and how did they walk, what did they dress, what did they eat, what kind of houses they were using, how they prepare their foods, all that in the village of Nazareth next to the church. And on we go to Nazareth Spring Square, where we can see the trough that used to take water out of the spring to serve all the passers-by with their herds of sheep and goats, donkeys and camels and horses could take water from, because they didn't have water supply to their homes. Now it's not functioning anymore because lack of water or rain coming down, everything is paved around this spring, and the church, the Greek Orthodox Church, is standing right on top of it, so they wouldn't let all the animals go into the church, so they built this trough in the street to get the water from the Holy Spring, which is located inside the church. So it became the symbol of city of Nazareth, this Mary's well. The Catholic Church of Annunciation, a beautiful structure that was completed in 1969, is located in the center of Nazareth and over the remains of the Crusader and the Byzantine churches. The remains you can find underneath. This Jewish church is built from 3 levels, and on the upper level, both and also in the courtyard, we can see plenty of portraits of Mary that are made of mosaic, colorful mosaic, to presented to the church as a gift from all Christian communities all over the world. It's funny to see how communities are seeing Mary and the baby through their eyes. So there we have a black Mary, and we have a Chinese Mary, and a Japanese one, and a Russian one, and so on. The most expensive mosaic is the one you see on the left corner. This is the one from Japan that is made completely from pearls. The modern, very beautiful church with beautiful acoustics. Sometimes we can hear the concerts of the organs inside if we're lucky to be around the time. And that takes us with another hour drive to the east, inland, to the Sea of Galilee, to Capernaum.
Now, Miky, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you, but speaking of churches and synagogues and mosques, we actually have a question from the audience, and Chris wants to know, is he allowed to take photos inside the mosque?
Yes, in most places, you can take as much photos as you want. There is one place, one church that the priests are not allowing to take photos, but they will allow without using the flashes. The tour director will always announce that before we go inside, and we'll tell them what can they use, if they're allowed to take photos or not. But mostly, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. So here we are in the old Synagogue of Capernaum. This is the destination that Jesus has chosen after he was denied by the local, very conservative community in Nazareth. Here he attended into a modern, more open society that accepted him as new ideas. Remember, all of them were Jews at that time. So they didn't like the idea that somebody is offering a different way to worship God in Nazareth, but here they did. So Capernaum is a relatively bigger town compared to the village on the mountain, which is called Nazareth. And here we can see the synagogue on the right and the church, which is built over the house of St. Peter. Jesus met St. Peter and the disciples over there, and from there he started his journey in the country to spread his word, and things started to catch up. So from the Sea of Galilee and the mountains of Lower Galilee, you can see in the background, we start driving along the River Jordan to the Jordan Valley south towards the desert. That will be our next destination, but we'll pass next to the Greek Orthodox Church of Capernaum. And again, we can see two churches on the same place for the same reason, but one is Catholic and one is Orthodox. So driving down for about 2 hours will take us to the next site, which is the oldest city in the world, called Jericho. Jericho, known for the biblical story when Joshua was leading the Israelites coming out Exodus in Egypt, and after a 40 years journey in the desert, they cross the River Jordan and into the Promised Land, and the first city they take over is Jericho. They've circled the city for 7 times, and the walls came tumbling down. Here we can see the Monastery of Carontal. Carontal, based on the Latin word 40. This is the Mount of Temptation where Jesus was put to a test by the devil for 40 days and 40 nights. A beautiful structure hanging on the side of the mountain. We'll take a cable car ride to the top of the mountain and take a short walk, a few steps into the monastery, visiting it. It's a very unique spot. And from there, we'll take the cable car down the hill, flying over the walls in the old city of Jericho, those walls that came tumbling down. And we continue our journey along the Dead Sea, the world's lowest point, about 1,250 feet below sea level, or about 425 meters below sea level. We can see this very thick, heavy water with a salinity of 33%. Just to compare, the ocean is 2.5%, and this is 33%. Because the Dead Sea, being the world's lowest point, is the dead end or for the last stop for the River Jordan. This is where the water getting in, but evaporating out because of the high temperatures, and all the minerals will stay in the water and the concentrations keep going up. That's why the water is so heavy, and your body is therefore a lot lighter, so you can actually sit on the water like this lady is doing, enjoying reading a book or a paper. We are going to experience this dip or swim in the Dead Sea before we are going to continue our tour and take again another cable car ride. Okay, we have a question here.
Yes, this question is from Helen, and Helen wants to know, what are the best things to buy on her trip to Israel?
Well, Israel can offer you a lot of things to buy. What is very unique to this country is, first, since we are already in the Dead Sea, we will relate to the Dead Sea skincare products, all this cream and shampoos and soaps, which are made from the minerals of the Dead Sea. A lot of skincare products, very helpful for psoriasis and other skin diseases. In the shops, you get instructors to tell you what is good for what, and they instruct the ladies what to use on day mask, night mask, and so on. What else we can buy in different locations are the nativity pieces, olive wood carved pieces of events that we mentioned in the New Testament, also the crosses, the candles and the rosaries and all things you can bring to your guests or to your friends for Christmas or to church. And also a lot of products are made of ceramic and kind of Phoenician glass, which are made in Jericho. But let me tell you guys, you shouldn't be excited and start your shopping on the first day. Give it 2-3 days for you to see the same products everywhere. You will learn the prices, and then you can negotiate and get the best deal. All the items are available in most of the touristic sites, so no need to be excited and do the shopping on the first day and get disappointed if you can see those same products cheaper on other parts later on the tour.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So on we go with our tour. We are still in the Jordan Valley next to the Dead Sea, and this time we take a cable car up to the top of Masada. Masada is a very interesting story. As you can see, it's a flat top mountain. It was the choice of the zealots, those rebels against the Romans. When they saw that they are going to lose the battle against the Romans, they decided to leave Jerusalem and to get together here on top of Masada in the palace that was left by King Herod after he died. And they thought that the Romans would never know about it. We don't know how the Romans knew about it, but they discovered eventually they are there, and they said the Roman army led by Flavius Silva, the commander, who took the Roman army and got to Masada, and they saw that they couldn't get up to the top, so they built a ramp. You can see on the right-hand side, there's 45 degrees ramp that will be able for them to take or to push up a battering ram and to break the walls and to put an end to the story once and for all. But the leader of these people, the zealots, had an idea of his own, and he said, we better die in our freedom and not fall into the hands of the Roman, become slaves, or they'll slaughter us. So they decided to commit suicide, and all 700 of them killed themselves. And in the next morning, when the Romans broke in, they saw piles of bodies. And this is how these guys ended their life in their freedom. We'll take a walking tour on the top. We'll see King Herod's palace. We'll see the Roman baths. We can see the synagogue. We can see the water system and the water systems. We can see the water gate, not Mr. Nixon's water gate, but Masada's water gate. It was before. And from there, we're going to take the cable car down for our bus waiting for us at the bottom. It will take us into the desert that you can see in the background. Another hour drive will take us to the Bedouin tribes education center, which is located in the middle of the desert. Will be welcomed by the locals. Starting our tour with a camel ride. And then we'll be hosted inside the tent for a coffee and a tea and explanations about the Bedouin tradition, Bedouin life in the desert. And it's very interesting by the locals. They will present it. Sometimes the tour director says to translate because not all of them speak English, but it's a very unique experience. Ending this event by a Bedouin dinner, which takes place outdoors, as you can see. Sometimes it will be indoors. It depends if the weather will permit. Sometimes there's a dust storm, so it's not pleasant to sit outdoors. And after this Bedouin dinner, we are going to take the bus and drive up to the mountain again, to the mountains of Judea, to our next site, which is Jerusalem. Arriving to Jerusalem, the holiest city for the three monotheistic religions, for Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, visiting mainly the old city, which is surrounded by walls that were built, as you can see here, in the 16th century. The walls are surrounding only the old city, not all the modern Jerusalem that you can see in the background. And inside we can see the three most holiest sites for Muslims. You can see over here for Islam, you can see the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In the center of the city, we can see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Christ was crucified, put to the tomb, and resurrected. And of course, the Western Wall, which is the only remain of the temple that was destroyed 2,000 years ago by the Romans. So you can understand the pressure of these holy places. We are going to visit the Garden of Gethsemane, the place where Jesus was identified by Judas Iscariot when the Romans were looking for him. We can see the old old ancient olive trees that believed to be the only witnesses to what happened there, since they are very, very old, maybe 2,000 years old, we don't know. But it's a beautiful church. We are going to visit inside. And by the way, this is the church that they wouldn't allow us to use the flashes inside when we take photos. From there, we are going to walk the way of the cross in the old city, visiting all the 14 stations, and that will take us to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is located inside the center of the city. Here we can see one of the Jewish Orthodox neighborhoods. That will give you a clue how the Jewish communities lived in East Europe, in Poland, Russia, and Germany about 250 years ago. A very, very, I would say, low, simple life, very modest life on a very low social, I would say not much money is involved. They have living on a very low budget and social and supporting each other. It's like living again in a ghetto. We prefer to live together and not get mixed in order to maintain and to be loyal to their life, not to be exposed to modernism at all. Our tour will continue in Jerusalem, and at the night we are going to have the night spectacular show, which is a review of all what Jerusalem went through ever since it was actually the beginning, the Genesis, the creation of the world, and until today. It's a beautiful show with music that was written specially for that. It lasts about an hour, and it's presented on the city walls from the inside, so it makes a beautiful background, like natural, and it changes with the colors, so you wouldn't be able even to identify that these are the old walls. The colors are making them come alive. Another part of Jerusalem we're about to visit is the Western Wall. Now we can see it. Again, this wall is part of the wall that was, I will give you an example. The temple was standing where the Dome of the Rock was standing. It's like a big shoebox. What we can see is the west side of the shoebox. It has 4 walls, and this is not the city walls, it's the Temple Mountains wall, and this is the only part which is still available. The rest of it is not existing or even covered with building that were built next to it, as you can see. What we can see, if you take a deep look in this photo, we can see that the lower part of the Western Wall can be seen here. The big stones, the square ones, are the original 2,000 years old ones. And the restoration that was done in the 16th century with the new modern city walls were done by the Turks, by the Ottomans in the 16th century. So only part of it is original and stayed after the destruction of the temple. Another place we're about to visit is again, the Church of Holy Sepulchre. This is the roof of the Church of Holy Sepulchre. This is the Ethiopian section. Around the church, there's presence of different sects, like the Greek Orthodox, the Roman Catholics, the Armenians, the Ethiopians, and so on. So all of them are claiming for one part, not always peacefully. Here we can see the church from inside, and you'll be able to see in a minute the tomb itself was built by the Crusaders. So again, it's not the original. Here we can see King David's tomb, which is also not far away from there, the tomb of King David on top of Mount Zion, where we can visit inside. But here, being a Jewish holy place, you're not allowed to take photos on weekend. It means on Saturday, you're not allowed, according to the Jewish faith, to operate any electrical equipment, no mobile phones, and therefore no cameras. So again, your tour director will tell you where you cannot take photos. That'll take place here in King David's tomb and also in the Western Wall, as being a holy Jewish site. Another part is the Last Supper room, or which is also called the upper room. Again, we can see a very typical Crusader architecture, and therefore we know that it was built in the 10th century, and this is about 2,000 years after the event of the Last Supper took place there. So it's not the original room, it's the location that was built by the Crusaders in the 10th century. Remember, King David lived 1,000 years BCE, before Common Era, and the Crusaders were about 1,000 years after. So in between, there's 2,000 years, so the tradition caused them to build this structure over here, being the Last Supper room. And you could see on the right, the Mahrab, it was changed to become a mosque as the Muslims took over in the 16th century. Here we can see the Last Supper that took place actually there, but underneath, not in the room we saw. But again, it's built for the location. We can see Jesus and the disciples at Passover evening having the Seder, the traditional Seder meal. before he left them and he went down to the Garden of Gethsemane, and then eventually he was arrested. So this is the, I would say, traditional or religious part of the tour, visiting those famous places. Then from here we are going.
Miky,
yes.
Sorry, we have another question actually from Patricia, and she wants to know if you have any packing recommendations, and does she need to cover up at certain sites?
Well, not that much. Actually, visiting holy sites like the Western Wall or the King David's tomb, traditional sites, visiting the Dome of the Rock or the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, ladies will be required to cover their shoulders, okay? A t-shirt would be enough, and also not to expose whatever is above their knees, so no mini skirts. Same for men, need to wear long pants and not shorts. This is the only restriction about packing, about being dressed in visiting the sites. And again, the tour director is always informing them a day before, at the end of the day, what's the dressing code for the next day, so they'll be ready and there wouldn't be any problems with the locals. But no head covers are needed and nothing else.
Perfect. And we have two other questions before continuing. The first one is, can you enter the Jerusalem temple?
Well, the temple is not there anymore. It was destroyed in the year 70 AD, but what we find there today is the Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock being a Muslim site, the third most important Muslim site after Mecca and Medina. So it's forbidden to non-Muslims to visit. So we can go up to the Temple Mountain on certain visiting hours in between the Muslim prayers and walk around it, but not into the structure itself. In other mosques, they will let us in, which are in the city. We have other small mosques if they want to see how a mosque looks from inside, or the ones we saw in Akko and Acre can be visited from inside, but not this one.
Perfect. And then we have a question from Vicky, and Vicky wants to know, is there a lot of uneven surfaces that you walk on during this tour?
I would say that only in Jerusalem, since all the tour in the old city of Jerusalem is a walking tours, and there are many steps involved. It's a paved limestone surface, but it's not very flat. For example, if it's not like wheelchair friendly, if you roll a wheelchair, it's shaking very much, so it's a bit of a problem. Also, it's a walking tour of about 4 hours altogether. We do that. We do stops every now and then for explanation, so we let the participants have a break and sit down. Sometimes we make a break for a coffee or a tea to let them rest, but we don't have uneven surfaces. Most of the country is handicap friendly, and all the sites are accessible with wheelchairs, so not at all unpaved surfaces, but only the old city will be a lot of walking tour. That's why I recommend to bring some sneakers or good, comfortable walking shoes for this day. No high heels.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes. So on we go, and the last site we are visiting in Jerusalem is the Holocaust Museum, called in Hebrew Yad Vashem. Here we can see the atrium, the entrance, which leads us over a bridge into this triangle structure, which is shaped like a Toblerone chocolate bar. This is the museum, which we are going to spend good 2 hours inside in order to see, to learn about what happened in the Holocaust in Europe. This design of that building is very special. You can see that this part is hanging in the air, but then it goes into the ground, into the mountain, and then it comes out on the other side. It opens to the beautiful view of the mountains of Judea and Jerusalem. And that means a lot. I mean, that life was undisturbed before, and then when the Nazis took over, things started to deteriorate. And it shows chronologically this process of the Nazis taking over and their solution, what to do with the Jews, about destroying their books and their culture, and then the concentration camp, and the last final solution, and eventually the Liberation Day, and coming out to freedom again, and coming to Israel and establish the new state and starting their own free life. Here we can see the library with all the files of the names, these black files that you can see in the lower part of the photo, the names of the 6 million victims, and some photos of them over a water well. Water well symbolizes life. This is also part of the museum. From inside the museum, while you are inside the museum, you'll take a walk, as you can see over here, on your own pace. You can rent an easy guide over there and go and listen to explanation as you wish. We find that the most the convenience way to do, because each and every person reacts differently to this. Some of them are very emotional. Some of them would like to stop the tour and maybe come out in the middle. So each one goes his own pace. And we set a time for us to meet on the other side on the balcony. And we get together and continue with our tour. A very touching experience, I would say. From Jerusalem, we drive to the next door town, which is about 20 minutes ride to Bethlehem, birthplace of Christ. We are going to stroll in the alleys of Old Bethlehem, little town of Bethlehem. We are going to visit the grotto or the cave where Jesus was born, which is located today underneath the Greek Orthodox Church. We call it the place of the Nativity. We will see the place where Christ was born and also the place where the manger was. These are the alleys of Bethlehem. Here we can see the entrance. The little black square is the entrance to the church. The only church that was left in Israel was not destroyed by the Arab invasion in 1286 after the Crusaders lost the war and had to leave. So we have a Crusader church, an original Crusader church, beautifully decorated from inside. And all that is built over the grotto where Christ was born. Again, the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem. Here we can see inside the grotto, this nun is looking at the Star of Bethlehem. Underneath the altar, you can see exactly the place where Mother Mary gave birth to Jesus. And right behind this nun, there's a red curtain, and behind it, there's the place where the manger was located. So we're going to see both of those places while visiting and queuing for some time, because there's always high request to visit this place, and it's very narrow. So we go down one by one, and we come up on the other side. It's a one-way system. Behind the nun, you can see the steps to come in, and on the left side, you cannot see, but there's a way to come out. And the group is meeting again inside the church and continue our tour. From there, we are going back to Jerusalem at the end of the day. And we will end our tour in Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem, we will be transferred to your flight home from Ben Gurion Airport again. So we complete kind of a circle in the country, from the center to the north, to the east, and then back to the airport.
Great. Thank you so much, Miky, for that great walkthrough through this wonderful tour. Now, let's briefly go over all the tours we currently offer to Israel. So starting with the wonders of ancient Israel, Christian heritage, you can follow the footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth and his apostles as you explore the Christian heritage of Israel. From Jesus's birthplace in Bethlehem to its crucifixion and resurrection in the holy city of Jerusalem, you can explore the stories and the scenes that set up the foundation for an entire faith. Now, this tour is 10 days long or 14 days with the Jordan extension. Next, we have a new tour of Israel, including Tel Aviv, the Dead Sea, and Jerusalem. On this tour, you'll take a step back in time at famous sites that span stunning landscapes. And on this trip, you'll get a chance to experience a Jerusalem home-hosted Shabbat dinner and take part in a hike in Masada. This tour is 10 days long or 14 days with the Jordan extension. And lastly, we have another new tour in our portfolio. This one is Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. On this tour, you'll discover the history behind Jerusalem and Petra before figuring out once and for all how the Egyptians built the pyramids of Giza. Then you'll get to live like a local by savoring your fair share of falafel and relaxing in the salty waters of the Dead Sea. This tour is 14 days long or 17 days with the Luxor and Cairo extension. You can find all of these tours by going to goetours.com and searching for Israel in the search bar at the top right corner. Now, we will take a few questions from the audience, so please write in your questions in the Q&A box. If you're on Facebook, you can use the comment box there to post your questions. But before that, Miky, let's go over 3 more pre-submitted questions.
Sure.
All right, so this question is from Rella, and Rella wants to know, what is the best time or the best time of the year to visit Israel?
Well, there are 2 seasons we consider to be the best time of the year, weather-wise. One starts at end of February, beginning of March, when the rainy season ends. So we are into spring, so March, April, and May are the best time of the year. temperature-wise, it's very convenient and no rain. Everything is green and blooming and lush. The other part comes in the end of the summer, because summer begins in June, July, August, which is very hot and humid. Tours are still going on, but some people are trying to avoid this period. They complain that it's too warm and too hot for them. They're sweating. So the recommended second season is from October, November, and December, before the rain season becomes heavy. Not that the tours are not running. Tours are running all year round, but these are the two best periods of time to have tours and enjoy the weather and the country.
Perfect. And now for our next question. This is from Marie, and Marie wants to know, how safe is it to travel to Israel?
Well, a good question, I must say, and because the image Israel has after appearing in such a bad way in the media for so many years, let me tell you guys that the media is always concentrating in the worst news, because bad news sells best. They can make a lot of profit and money of that, but they will never advertise or never talk to you about good things. So I'll give you an example. If somebody is getting stabbed in Jerusalem, in 5 minutes, all the world will know about it. But how many people are getting stabbed in New York and Chicago every night? Nobody hears about it. And that's exactly what is happening. There's a big wave of news, it sells good, and it gives off a very bad image, and therefore it is killing our tourism. Israel is very safe. Any lady could walk after dark hours on her own to any part of the market, the old city, anywhere she wants, and nothing will happen. People will be very helpful to direct tourists. No aggression was ever aimed against tourists. And as I'll say in a very sarcastic way, we don't shoot kids at schools yet. So I would say that in some parts of the US, people wouldn't do what they can do here on dark hours, even around outside their homes. Here it's very safe. And I can tell you many stories about people who lost their wallets or passport, and they found it in the hotel before they returned. So the tourist police will help. People are very honest. Not that we don't have crime, we do have it, but it's a lot lower than it appears in other countries.
Perfect, thanks. And then we have a question from Daniel, and Daniel wants to know, what is the currency in Israel, and do they need to carry cash?
Well, Israel's currency is called NIS, New Israeli Shekels. Shekel, it's a biblical chunk of silver that was the money used in biblical time. This is the shekel, so the same name is used here. The local shekel is about a quarter of the US dollar. To be more precise, 3.25 shekels will make $1 US. Now, you definitely do not need to change money while you are outside Israel in your local bank and pay a lot of commission in order to come with some Israeli notes in your wallets. It's not needed. US dollars are more than welcome everywhere, so you can pay with US dollars. Maybe you'll get the change in shekels that you can use later for coffee or Coke or anything you want to buy. You can get rid of the shekels before you return home. You can also use your plastic cards everywhere. Sometimes on the Palestinian side, we have problems with American Express because communications problems. So because of the Palestinian bank, and I don't know what this problem, but sometimes American Express wouldn't work. But other Visa or MasterCard will work with no problem, so you can use that again. Also to take out money from the ATMs, you can. In some places you can withdraw dollars, in some places you can withdraw shekels, so no problem at all. Don't bother to change money before you come here, it will cost you an arm and a leg.
Perfect, thank you. Now let's look at some of the questions that we got in throughout the webinar. So the first one is from James, and James wants to know if there are bathrooms along the way throughout the tour.
Well, that's a good question. I'll say where bathrooms are not available, and don't get hysteric. We do not have bathrooms on the buses in Israel because the distances, as I mentioned, driving distances will be half an hour, 40 minutes from one side to another. So first thing first, whenever we arrive, I'll show the people where toilets are. We say coffee in, coffee out. We are using, toilets are available, very good and very clean, maintained. And they are available everywhere. In some places, we need to pay a shekel, which is, again, $0.25 for the man that is maintaining there, or the lady which is cleaning. And I find it very fair to pay a quarter and to find a clean bathroom than not to pay and find him dirty. but toilets are available everywhere. And we take that into consideration on our tour. And again, every site, first thing is a toilet break. And after everyone is out, we actually visiting the sites.
Great. Perfect. Now we have a question from Benita, and you might not know the answer, but she wants to know if they can arrange for an overnight at a Bedouin camp with dinner and breakfast for a private group.
Of course they can. I don't see how is that going to work with the tour, but as an extension on their own, of course, we can help them do that. No problem. They just need transportation to get there. In that Bedouin center, there are few options. There's the spoiled one, which is rooms like cabins with air conditioning, with shower, with everything, electricity, and dinner and a breakfast. And there's the authentic way for those who wants to sleep on a sleeping bag on a mattress in the tent, which I hate to do, but it's very sandy and dusty environment. But some people would like to experience, so this is available as well.
Perfect.
We are in very good relation with this bedding center, and the owner is a very nice person, and will be happy to provide anything that the tourist will want. So
Wonderful.
It's available. Yeah.
That's great. Now, our next question is from Vicky, and Vicky wants to know, in Jordan, they visit Petra, and where else?
In Jordan, they have a local Jordanian guide, and I'm ending at the border when I transfer them to the Jordanian bus, and I don't have a clue about what they're doing there. I know that the highlight of Jordan is Petra, of course. I think they're visiting Amman, but don't take my word for it. I never checked this program. I know nothing about it. Sorry.
Perfect. All right, Vicky, we will make sure to follow up with you later.
It is appearing, no, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's appearing on the itinerary. You can read it. There's a very detailed program, what they do every day in Jordan. They are visiting Jarash, which is a big archaeological site with a theater again, and Nympheon and Cardo. So it's Jarash, it is Petra, it's Amman, but maybe Mount Nebo. I'm not sure really. Please check the itinerary and you'll know. Thank you.
Great. Now, Stacy wants to know, are there any haunted locations?
What do you mean by haunted?
Are there any locations that might have had a history of, paranormal or something of that sort?
No, mostly traditional and biblical sites, Christianity,
right.
Christians, Judaism, and Muslim. No, we don't have that at all.
Great. And Vicky is a vegetarian, so she wants to know if she will have trouble finding food that she can eat.
We are always, she has to announce that on her booking form, and then we get an announcement from EF. So in every restaurant, there will be a vegetarian meal prepared for her, also in the hotel option, also not only for vegetarian, also for gluten-free. This is also an option which is existing there. So but we have to know in advance. It's like a plane. You order a meal, you get what you order. And also sometimes they forget to do that. So we arrange a last minute one. We have good connections, so they'll give her salads or something vegetable. She wouldn't stay hungry, that's for sure. But it's better to know that in advance.
Great. And now Elaine is asking, how much free time is there on tour?
Well, free time on the tour, we have some breaks, especially in the old city of Jerusalem. We don't have much, but they have free evenings to go. Sometimes dinner is not included, and they are recommended to go to look for ventures or some restaurants, which they wish. Sometimes I'll give them recommendations, so they go. They can combine that with a walking tour in the market in the bazaar, which is open in the evening as well. I'll tell you the truth, seeing what's happening here in the last years, traffic-wise, we will see that the time we need in order to execute the programs is less and less free time, because it takes us longer to drive from one point to another. So we spend a lot of time on tour. We have to leave early and to sometimes we return to the hotel a bit early, and people are very exhausted. But if they still insist to go, they can go in the evening. But again, in order to catch up and not to miss anything that is on the itinerary, we are fully booked during the day and not much of a free time during the day. Sorry.
Great. Now, Debbie wants to know if there are certain Muslim or Jewish holidays that she should avoid.
Yes, there are. Look, the tours are going all year around. Personally, I will say that I am even trying to avoid being booked on tours that are happening on Jewish holidays, Christian holidays, and Muslim holidays. Not because there's a problem, you can travel, but the sites are very busy, and therefore we lose a lot of time queuing to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of Nativity, or the Western Wall. It's very busy, it's uncomfortable. Easily people are getting lost because it's very crowded. So I would say it's more comfortable off those times. How would you know? You can look at the calendar and see, and if not, you can always ask us and we'll tell you which is the best time, avoiding all this. Also in Pesach, Passover, all the Jewish hotels are kosher. Mm-hmm. So you cannot have any dough products, no bread, only the matzah bread, which I hate to say, only looking at it gets us to be constipated. But again, people are finding uncomfortable to have the regular food they're used to, and it's not available for 8 days. So again, to avoid Passover, it's very, very busy. Traffic is chaos, and the joy, I mean, from the tour is not like it's when it's done between those holidays and not within the holidays.
Perfect, great question. Yeah. Now, this is one that I can answer. So Paul is asking if they need a visa for Jordan. And the answer is yes. A group visa for entry into Jordan will be required, but Go Ahead provides it for all travelers whose flights have been arranged through Go Ahead. So Paul, I hope that answered your question.
I would like to add to that. It is called a group visa, which helps a lot the groups to cross the border faster. And I believe I saw one lady was writing using passports on the tour here. So twice we are crossing the checkpoints into the Palestinian territories. Once is in Jericho, which is very easy, and the other one is Bethlehem, which you have to go to checkpoint, but tour buses are not stopped at all. Therefore, you don't need to carry your passport. If you have it with you, it's good, but if you don't have it, they don't care about. They are trying to avoid Israelis or Palestinians going from one side to another, but tourists can go freely in and out. It's free. You don't need your passport with you. They know, they can see that you're a tourist, so don't bother to have it. You can better leave it in the safe in the hotel so it wouldn't be stolen or lost.
Perfect. Now, for the next question, James wants to know how crowded do the sites get?
Crowded, there are two sites which are very crowded. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre for Christian pilgrims, if they want to queue to go into the tomb, they can queue to 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes, because people are going one by one inside, and the queues could go out of the main door of the church into the next streets. Same thing in the Church of Nativity, when they would like to visit the Nativity Grotto in Bethlehem, also could be 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. So for the Catholic pilgrims, it's very important, and they do insist to do it. Some other groups will say, we don't want to do it, but it causes a problem, because if there's one customer in the group that wants to say, he said, I pay for that, I want to do it, so we have to wait and do it. So what I do, sometimes I split the group. Those who want to wait will wait, and the others will take the walking tour with me to see other interesting sites, and not to keep them busy and not get the feeling that they're losing time. But we don't lose time. We do something, and we always do something. We have an alternative to do.
Great. Now, the next question is from Isabel, and Isabel wants to know if the pomegranate represents something in Israel. So is there a symbolic meaning behind that?
Yeah. 666 seeds of wisdom. Yeah, pomegranates is a symbol of wisdom. And it appears on many pieces of jewelry. Once you mentioned, there's a special place in Jerusalem that produces this jewelry from pomegranate shapes. It's amazing to see. We see the seeds inside. In every street corner, they're selling the pomegranate juice, which is freshly squeezed. A lot of iron, but when it stains your shirt, it's gone. It will never come out. It's a lot of iron, so it becomes black, and then it wouldn't come out, especially on light-colored shirts.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Miky, for helping answer all of our travelers' questions. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we are so excited to start running tours to Israel starting this November. So if you're interested in getting to know the Holy Land even more and enjoy its beautiful architecture, culture, and delicious food, you can go to goaheadtours.com/ISR to check out available dates for this specific tour that Miky just walked you through. Just to let you know, vaccination is required as of right now to enter Israel, but this can change in the future. So keep an eye out on our website for the most up-to-date information on entry requirements. Finally, if you enjoyed yourself today, like Miky and I certainly did, please mark your calendars for our upcoming Travel Talk webinars. We have 2 destination spotlights coming up, solo travel tips with our ambassador Jessica on September 14th. And for those of you who are fans of Oktoberfest, we have a virtual escape on Oktoberfest on September 21st. And lastly, we have a new type of Travel Talk event that we are offering where travelers who just come back from tour share their experience live on Facebook. You can sign up to any or all on our website by going to goetours.com/webinars. Right, Miky, thank you so much for taking the time to share your stories and insights and for answering all our questions. I officially added Israel to my travel wish list. And I can't wait to see you in person when we're able to do so.
Looking forward.
Now, to everyone who joined at home, thank you so much for joining us and for participating. We truly hope that you enjoyed yourself. Miky, would you like to say goodbye to our audience?
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you guys. Hope to see you in real sometimes in the future, and I'll be waiting for you. Goodbye and thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so very much. See you next time.